I'm Sam.
I'm Colin.
I'm Addison.
And this is our Lift Biomechanics video.
Down. Alright, ready? On lift. 1, 2, 3, lift. Alright, let's bring him over to the stairs here. Alright. I'm gonna lift. Okay. Start walking backwards.
1, left. Perfect. All right, bring him back. Bring him back. Camera, follow us.
1, 2, 3, down. 2, 3, down.
Yeah, you might.
2, 3, down. 3, tilt. Perfect. And we're gonna lift on things. 1, 2, 3, lift. All right, I'm about to take my first step. You got it?
Yep.
Okay. Step. Step. 1, 2, 3, lower. Tilt up on 3. 1, 2, 3, tilt.
2, 3. Alright, let's bring him up the stairs here, okay? Alright. Step. 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 2, 3, down. And tilt. 1, 2, 3, tilt. Wait. Step. 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 And down on 3. 1, 2, 3, down. And forward on 3. 1, 2.
On left. 1, 2, 3, left. Perfect. Just gonna drag him over here. Alright, we're gonna bring him back to the transport height, right? On left. 1, 2, 3, left.
1, 2, 3, lift. Alright, down. Alright. Alright, we're gonna bring him down to transport height. Alright, ready? On lift. 1, 2, 3, lift. Alright, so I was evaluating Sam for the biomechanics lift assignment. So these are 3 things he should work on. 1 is whenever he's at the head of the stretcher, he should lift with his legs and not with his arms, even though it's up higher. Just get the strain off of his forearms and lift with his legs, especially when it comes to heavier loads. Whenever he's at the feet of the stretcher, he should be more bent at the knees so it doesn't strain his back. Again, especially when it comes to heavier loads later on in the program. So the third thing is that even though he does keep a neutral spine, he should consciously think to lift with his legs and not with his back. Because even though he does keep that neutral spine, it's just as long as he, again, lifts with his legs, it just gets rid of the strain. So 2 things he should be cautious about is 1, try and get lower in a squat position. Again, just so you can get more leg drive off the floor, especially with the scoop. And the second thing is to push off from his heels rather than his toes. Just leg drive, and you're going to activate your quads more. So one thing that he nailed was he has great spatial awareness of body parts and the equipment around him. He's not tripping up on anything, and he knows how to use the equipment, and he knows how each piece of equipment is used. Overall, he just needs to be thinking about lifting from his legs and staying more upright. But besides that, Sam did very well in all of his lifts.
Alright, so I was critiquing Addison for the biomechanics lift assignment. A couple things that he definitely needs to work on. I would say his lower and upper body mechanics. So during the stair lift specifically, you can see when he lifts the chair with his partner, his legs are straight and his back is curved, and the load is substantially away from his body. So we know that through training that these all need to be corrected. So in order to use proper technique, he's just gonna have to think about the task at hand and what exactly he's doing to avoid injury or, anything like that. Another thing is muscular strength is something that can be definitely worked on. So during the stretcher lift, he had problems loading the stretcher into the ambulance and hitting the wheels on the bumper. So it's safe to say that if he has trouble with a 60-pound weight, then he's definitely gonna have problems when we get to our mandatory lift exam later on in the program. So I would just say start going to the gym, gain muscle mass in the areas that support the back and the upper body, but Addison's a very capable guy and he won't have any problems with this. A couple things that he needs to be cautious of would definitely be his hand grip position. When he was lifting the stretcher into the ambulance, he was using the upper handles, and based on his height, he should definitely be using the lower set of handles to get more physical advantage. It'll make a smoother transition, and cause less of a possibility of injury. Also, his step count, his communication is something that could definitely be worked on. Specifically during the upward ascent and the scoop, it's evident that he's not synchronized with his partner. So this is a fixable problem, but it's not something that should be ignored. It could lead to serious communication error and possibly leading to dropping a patient, which is something we all want to avoid as paramedics. And last but not least, something he nailed would be his lift and drop count sequences that were fantastic. In all the lifts, he was clear and concise with his instruction to his partner and patient, and maintained consistent eye contact throughout each lift. So that's super important, performing lifts for the safety of our patients and ourselves. So we'll definitely make a paramedic out of him yet.
All right, so for the assignment, I evaluated Colin. The first thing, I think Colin did really well getting into a full squat position, keeping his back straight, lifting with his legs. This is a vital part of lifting, as it'll help prevent back injuries later on, especially when we get to heavier weight. I feel this has been a strength for Colin for some time, as he used to participate in CrossFit and therefore has done extensive training in lifting and lift formation. The first thing he needs to work on is he needs to work on going down the stairs at the feet of the scoop. For the first couple stairs, Colin was a little wobbly. This is important because this is when you find pace and timing with your partner, as well as this poses a risk of possibly dropping the patient and creating injury to himself, his partner, or the patient. Another thing Colin needs to work on is simply getting familiar with how high to lift the stretcher to lift the carriage. When he was lifting the stretcher, the wheels didn't come fully off the ground, so the carriage did not lift up. This is simply a technique that he needs to work on because it'll make the stretcher load much more efficient, and it will be easier to lift the stretcher as you're not lifting it repeatedly, taking strain off your body. The final thing he needs to work on is during the scoop lift, he needs to lock his arms in a higher position. This will take the strain off your forearms and locate it more to your biceps, allowing you to get more endurance and have a more secure lift, and prevent injuries in the long run. One thing he needs to be cautious about is he should be cautious about taking full steps when unloading the stretcher out of the truck rather than taking short shuffle steps. This is fine on flat floor, but once we get outside and onto uneven ground, it poses the possibility of him tripping and possibly twisting an ankle. The other thing he should be cautious of is his grip position. Colin should position his hands closer to the center of the stretcher rather than the outside to take strain off his wrist and forearms, which will prevent injury later on.